With summer just around the corner, we thought we'd show you our design for the super simple pine Adirondack chairs using minimal tools and a pocket hole jig. The whole thing is put together using exterior wood glue and 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws.
So to make this as easy as possible for you to follow, we've actually produced a full set of plans which you can access down below for free.
For this whole project, we're using smooth planed pine, which is readily available and will massively cut down on how much sanding you've got at the end of the build.
Each of the boards we're using are 18mm thick and 2.4 meters long, and they come in 3 different widths: 144mm, 94mm, and 69mm.
First up, you want to cut all your timber to size, and you can do this using a panel saw or a jigsaw if you prefer. There's a full cut list included in the plans for you to check out. We find it much easier to work this way round because then all of your timber is prepped, ready for each step.
Once all your pieces are cut to size, we wrap a bit of sandpaper around some scrap wood just to soften all those cut edges.
The first part of the chair we're going to focus on is the legs. Each leg is made of 2 pieces of those wide pine boards, and here you can see us marking some chamfers on the front leg and an angle on the back leg just so it sits nicely on the floor. Once again, all of these sizes are listed in the plans if you're following along.
To join these together, we're using outdoor wood glue and screws. To ensure everything stays nice and flat, we're clamping one of our spare boards to the workbench and then butting those legs up against it to mimic that ground level. One thing to remember, when you're making that second leg, you want to make sure it's a mirror version of the first. Basically, just ensure that those vertical legs are on the outside.
Next up, we're going to add the 3 cross braces, which are going to join these 2 leg assemblies together. For this, we're busting out our Triton T2 double pocket hole jig. You could also use the Triton T1 single jig, but the double will save you a little bit of time when you have to drill pairs of pocket holes together.
This jig set comes with everything you need for this project and is super simple to set up. Firstly, you'll want to set it to the depth of the material that you're cutting using the scale on the side of the jig. Next, set the drilling depth by popping the supply drill bit into the jig and stopping just shy of the end. Then place the collar over the top of the drill bit and tighten it in place. Then it's just a case of clamping the jig in place and drilling your holes. Just a quick tip, it helps to use the fastest setting on your drill to prevent tear out.
Now we're going to attach those 3 braces using glue and screws. To save us from having to fill loads of holes later, we're putting the pocket holes on the hidden face wherever possible. You can pop that base assembly aside for a minute because now we're going to focus on the backrest. We wanted this to be a little bit comfier than just a flat piece of wood, so we're going to add a gentle curve to the back. To mark out this curve on the back braces, a simple method is to use 2 screws and something flexible like a long ruler or a thin strip of wood to mark out that arc onto the wood.
To cut these curves, we used our jigsaw. We wanted these chairs to have a nice reclined seating position, so we cut the curve of the bottom brace with a slight angle. On the bottom of the Triton jigsaw, there's a quick release lever, meaning you can angle that base plate. We went for a 10 to 15 degree angle. As the top back brace isn't load bearing and therefore doesn't screw into the sides, we cut a couple of angles on these just to make it look a little bit nicer from the back.
When attaching the back slats to the braces, you're definitely going to want to pre-drill to avoid any splitting. To speed this up and keep the screws uniformly spaced, we found it worthwhile to spend a couple of extra minutes to make a really quick drilling jig. This is as simple as a scrap piece of wood with 2 holes drilled in it to make the drilling process go super quickly, as you don't have to mark them all out. Do you remember that angle that we cut on the bottom brace? Well, because of this, you're going to need to make sure you draw a second set of angled holes on your drilling jig to make sure you don't get screws poking out where they shouldn't be.
Before screwing everything together, we cut those top corners off the 2 outside slats just as a decorative touch.
When fixing the slats in place, we started in the middle and worked outwards to keep everything nice and centred. To keep the spacing even, we actually used a pocket hole plug as a spacer between the slats. You'll find these included in the Triton T2 set.
To attach the backrest to the base, glue and screw the bottom brace to the back legs. If your measurements are correct, there should be a cross brace directly beneath the backrest for added support. Just a quick note, the back is pretty unstable at the moment because it's just held in place with those 4 screws, so just be a bit gentle with it until the arms are in place.
Next up is to get the seat slats screwed in place, and once again we've pre-drilled each of these to prevent splitting. We're using a pocket hole plug as a spacer again, but we do recommend you doing a dry fit first, and that way you can adjust those gaps if necessary.
The last step of the build is to attach some arms, but to make sure these are super sturdy, we're going to fix some arm supports in place using more pocket holes. Each side consists of a small support piece as well as a longer arm support rail, and this is what attaches the backrest in place.
To make sure that these support pieces stay flush with the top of the front leg, we found that it helps to clamp the arm in place. Since this is the last step of the build, space is getting a little bit tight, but fortunately the T2 set comes with a short square drive bit to make sure you can get into those tight spaces. Chuck this up in your drill and then use it to attach the arms to the arm support pieces.
As mentioned earlier, most of the pocket holes are hidden, but we did decide to use the included plugs to cover up some of those holes on the inside of the arm rails. Once the glue is dry, we sanded these back flush as well as giving the rest of the chair a once over with the Triton palm sander, which makes quick work of this.
Now you could finish this however you choose, but we decided to go for paint. We went for a single coat of primer and 3 coats of an outdoor paint in slate grey. So there you go, there's our design for a simple Adirondack chair. By using that smooth plain pine and following the plans, this is pretty manageable to do in a single day.
The Triton T2 pocket hole jig makes the whole process super speedy and produces some really strong joints. To give it some context,
I weigh 12.5 stone.
and I'm 16.
Whether you're a beginner with just a couple of tools or you've got a fully kitted out workshop, this is a really fun project to do and it's great to get you set up ready for summer.
Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.